This bizarre looking car has predicted the future before, and I reckon it'll do it again. The thing is, nobody seemed to pay any attention to it when it did it the first time round, and I think I have a suspicion as to why that was the case. Dear viewers, I'd like to present to you the ever goofy crystal ball that is the BMW i3. Today, BMW's i branding is familiar to most of us road users. Its enigmatic letter gets plastered on any BMW powered by the free-range fields of electricity, as opposed to the ever outdated and more traditional cars which run on good old-fashioned dinosaur juice. It is worth quickly noting that the I letter has been used by BMW for generations now, long before the EVs confiscated it for themselves. You may have noticed it before, and it goes at the end of a number, such as here and here, and this tells you that the car runs on petrol. How convenient. When the I is in front of the number though, as is the case here, that tells you that the car is electric. Anyway, back to the programme. BMWi was founded over a decade ago now, all the way back in 2011. A lot of crazy things happened in that year. Steve Jobs resigned as the CEO of Apple, getting replaced by Tim Apple. These lot absolutely dominated the Billboard charts. Meanwhile, many terrible humans met their timely demise. More relevantly though, 2011 was also designated as the Year of Forests, which is just as well as BMW's new i brand was created with a laser-sharp focus on addressing mobility and sustainability for its customers from what BMW referred to as megacities. Which is very well, because that's precisely where we find ourselves today. This was BMW's first ever electric i product. I know, we're looking at the godfather of the modern day BMW EV that you and I see cutting about town today. BMW didn't faff about getting stuck into and establishing their new i project. 2 years after its launch in 2013, they went ahead and launched this thing, the i3, and it was quite a big deal when it first came out. The i3 wasn't the first mass-produced EV to hit the market, but I'd say it was the first polished product from a big recognisable OEM, and that's important. Technically, Nissan pipped BMW to making the actual first mass-market EV with their Leaf, but yeah, its looks seemed to be aggressively dull, as were the customers who bought it, who seemed to be direct descendants of the ones who put a metal fish on their boot lid. So, we'll gloss over it for the purpose of our story. We're filming this video at the end of 2024, which means we have access to incredibly fascinating data, which shows us that this year, nearly 20% of all brand new car purchases in the UK were EVs. Now, as you can imagine, back in 2013, when the i3 was a brand new product, that simply wasn't the case. So with that in mind, what percentage of cars, brand new in 2013, do you reckon were EVs? And I can tell you now, is significantly less than that. It was 0.0002%. In fact, it was less than that. It was like 0.001924. But you get the idea. When this thing was brand new, it was an absolute alien on the roads. This is where we first begin to realise that the i3 might be able to predict the future. It was an early adopter in the notion that humans might eventually be interested in a car they have to plug in overnight in order to be able to use it the next day. However, at times the crystal ball perhaps wasn't crystal enough. You see, being aimed at who it's aimed at, the i3 relies on its megacity resident owner to be able to plug it into a socket to juice it up. In an ideal world, you'd be able to do this in your underground car park or driveway. With all of that said though, most people in London don't have the privileges of having those things. I'm currently walking around to try and find a street charger. There's one in a lamppost here, but you need an app to use it. I can't quite figure out how that works. And then there's just a bunch of random cars parked outside the chargers, so you can't even plug in if you wanted to anyway. And then the nearest place to put it is just on a single yellow outside somebody's house. I don't want to do that. Therefore, I need to drive to my local petrol station so I can reverse up against a fast charger and plug in my i3. This machine, however, is pretty easy to use, but it is quite expensive. If I was to plug the i3 in at home into a wall socket, as if it were an Xbox or something, it cost me about 2 beans to fully charge. Here though, expect to pay 10 times as much as that. And I guess now I have to wait for it to charge for about 45 minutes. 45 minutes is a long time to spend doom scrolling your last few remaining brain cells away sitting on your phone. Sure, in the real world you can leave your car on charge as you do your daily business, such as your weekly shop, but that requires a level of pre-planning that I evidently do not possess. So because I want to charge this up as quickly as possible, we've turned all the aircon stuff off, which means that this time of year it fogs up pretty quickly, which means that people think Camerman Matt and I have been tugging at the shell. This could be ruinous for our career, Matt. Yo. The i3 predicted the future in more than one way though. For starters, it followed through on that original manifesto and ethos of the BMWi brand of being as eco-conscious as possible. While today, manufacturers are very quick to point out that their levers are synthetic and their interiors are recycled, that wasn't quite the case in 2013 when this was a brand new car. Objectively, it's all quite a good thing, and to us nerds it can be embarrassingly interesting. However, I have a feeling that it may have scared off the normie customer just a little bit. We'll start off with the outside. The red plastic panels that you see bolted onto the side of the i3 are made from recycled plastic bottles. I assume this one was a Coca-Cola in its past life. And then those plastic panels are then taken and bolted onto a shape that looks like this. The i3 is, and very much always has been, a UFO. I love it, but I enjoy odd cars. I know a lot of people, however, do not. A lot of people like traditional things, even the weirdos who live in a metropolis, believe it or not. And this doesn't exactly look like a traditional BMW, does it? And it wasn't made like a traditional BMW either, because if you open up these intergalactic doors, you'll notice it's made entirely from carbon fibre reinforced plastics. The i3 was the first mass-produced car to be made in this way. It essentially has scraps of carbon fibre in its shell, which even by today's standards is quite techie. And it wears the perks of all that quite proudly. It's a physically strong car, it doesn't rust, and most importantly, it's very light. The i3 has managed to achieve what seems to be impossible today. It's a full EV that can comfortably seat 4, has a battery strapped to the bottom of it, and weighs, get this, a mere 1,300 kilo. Those are numbers engineers can only dream of nowadays. Now, there are people on the internet who claim that these seats are uncomfortable. The few i3s I've driven, however, haven't given me any trouble at all. In fact, I find it quite comfortable. Beyond that, I also find the interior a very peaceful and rather beautiful place to spend time, especially when it's night time and the ambient lighting really kicks in. And when it's daytime again, I get to enjoy the beautiful colour palette and the mix of materials. As is the case with the outside, the interior of this car is also very well versed in keeping our planet spinning as long as it can. The seats and door fabrics are from recycled water bottles and wool. The leather is tanned in colour using olive tree leaves. The dash is made from fast-growing canaf plant fibres. The plastics are again recycled. The wooden trim is made from a eucalyptus tree, even though this one pictured is technically oak. These trees are locally grown and sustainably forested near the Leipzig factory where the i3s are made. In fact, the factory that these are put together in use 100% renewable sources of energy in the production of the cars. The efforts BMW have gone to make the i3 as eco-friendly as possible are extensive and hard to learn, which is why this entire bit is in voiceover. And all of this means that even today, when the i3 is over a decade old, it's still packaged up and presented to us as customers and drivers, unlike any car I've ever experienced. There is, however, one catch: the range. So, as you can see, I've been here a little bit longer than 40 minutes, and I'm only up to 98%, and according to this machine, the last 2% will take 15 minutes, which, I'll be honest with you, I can't be bothered to wait for. So, let's see how much charge that has given me. Oh, there we go. It is 103 miles, 102 miles of real world range. So I'm going to put the heater on now in an attempt to get rid of all of this fogginess, and let's see if it does anything. No, it doesn't. I need to... Oh, here we go. And that range has just dropped down to 70 miles because I've turned on the heaters. What do you think of that, Matt? No bueno. These little i3s come with 3 different battery sizes, and our one has the fattest 120 AH battery. And no, I've got no idea what that means either, but it translates to about 42 kilowatt per hour. For context, today's BMW i4 has a 70 kilowatt hour battery, and an i7 has a enormous 105 kilowatt battery. If I had to use good old-fashioned Queen's English to break it down, think of a single kilowatt as a litre of fuel. The bigger the fuel tank, the more kilowatts you can pump in, and the further you'll go. Same as with a regular petrol car, the way the car can dance around the air and the amount it weighs play a significant role in how efficient it is in managing its fuel or charge. Now, the few die-hard i3 nerds that I know have told me that my big battery i3 should see an easy 170 miles of range, but it's colder this time of year, so I shouldn't be too judgmental on my little i3 for shrinking, because I would too. Now, I'd love to do a range test on all of this myself, but to be frank, 170 miles is an awfully long distance to try and cover in a city environment, which is where this car is designed for in the first place. But try and explain that to a normie who's never stepped foot in an EV, or London for that matter. You'll quickly begin to learn just how critical these lot are about the i3. I think the car's capabilities speak for themselves though, and can defend its honour well enough. But I'll leave you with this little nugget of thought that's just popped into my brain. The last attempt of old technology is always better than the first attempt of new technology. In a few years' time, when EVs charge in 5 minutes flat and give us a 1,000-mile range, think of me sitting in my little fizzy drink coloured i3, enjoying this present moment. Despite all the other things about the i3 being pretty good, when it was new it was just a bit edgy. I mean, look at it. If this car was a person, it would be a teenager wearing baggy jeans, an Arky beanie and some headphones listening to Young Lean. A common sight today, but not so much in 2013. The i3 was simply ahead of its time. Not only did it correctly predict the popularity of its charged-up propulsion, it also predicted the way of packaging all up together to appeal to those who can finally afford one today. There's a whole host of additional things this car predicted that we weren't really ready for, such as actually just living with a car that makes no noise. Short range and no warm-up needed is also a blessing you didn't know you need, until it's pissing down with rain and your 15-minute walk to the local shop could be a 3-minute drive. I like the i3, and it makes me wonder if perhaps today's automotive lust to stand out isn't something we need to look for. Maybe it's already something that's here, and it looks like this. This little i3 then is simply clairvoyant. It's got a supernatural ability to tell us about what's coming up next in a way that no other car can. So next time you cross paths with it, pay attention, because it might teach you something about the future. Thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed, feel free to check out our other videos on the left hand side of your screen. Until then, take care, and I'll see you soon.